Weighs silence, answer, spilled palm etheris hovers, two fractured light weights. Wound the air reeks of ozone is the answer, robes like a second skin, liquid heartbeat too. The void gnaws at her resolve, hungry for the grief she refuses to give. Wound the air spilled palm etheris hovers static essence into the void's clinging maw, an ethereal still, two fractured light weights. What does a god's regret taste like when it becomes a plague? What if the final days weren't a spiritual collapse but a viral outbreak of feeling? Dynamis did not corrupt it, infected. The void did not punish it, fed. Every heartbeat, every tear, every scream became kindling for a fire that gnawed at Hydaelyn's threads. A grief shared was a wound multiplied. A love clung to became a chain that smothered. The source frayed not from sin but from sentiment, its light dimmed by the weight of what it meant to feel. Etheri's essence bled into the void, but the true poison was the memory of it, the ache that lingered, the rage that festered. What if the plague was never in the body, but in the bond between souls? And when the sea rose, it was not to drown the world, but to wash the scars of feeling from the fabric of being. The first final days were no collapse, they were contagion. Meteian's song did not shatter the source, it unsealed Dynamis, a seething miasma that feeds on mortal feeling. As beings burned with ether storms, their fear, love, rage became kindling for the void. Zodiark rose to cage this chaos, yet the cycle remained unbroken. Why? Because Venet refused to sacrifice her children. She chose Hydaelyn's fragile light over Aetheris' endless night. The sundering left Dynamis festering, a wound in the source's fabric. Elpis visions in Endwalker did not predict Doomthi trace the plague's return. The final days are no fixed end point. They are recursion, a viral loop where feeling itself becomes weapon. Every heartbeat, every grief, every hope whispers Meteian's song anew. The war for the source is not against an enemy, it is quarantine, and the ether storms we see now, they are not Zodiark's chains. They are the void's breath finding its way back in. The ether storms we see now are not Zodiark's chains, they are the void's breath finding its way back in. Dynamis was never a curse. It was a circuit, a parallel grid to ether's lattice, siphoning not light but shadow. Emotion, raw and unfiltered, became its currency. This is no abstraction. In Endwalker's MSQ, Meteion did not merely sing. He shattered the boundary between feeling and form, turning collective despair into a tangible force. The weight of a mother's sorrow. The taste of a lover's regret. These were not metaphors, they were fuel. The previous calamity sought to drain the source, yes, but Meteion's design was cleaner. He bypassed the source entirely. By weaponizing Dynamis, he forged a new engine, a system where mortal sentiment itself became the raw material for annihilation. The final days were not a collapse, they were a cascade, a viral replication of feeling, spreading through minds like a fever. Each heartbeat, each unspoken grief fed the fire. The more they felt, the more they became fuel. Consider the evidence, the way Dynamis manifests not as smoke or mist, but as memory. A battlefield might ripple with the echoes of a child's laughter distorting space until joy itself bends steel. A city could drown in the static of 1,000 unspoken apologies, suffocating under the oxygenless weight of what was never said. This is not chaos, this is engineering. Meteion did not corrupt the world, he optimized it. By replacing the source with Dynamis, he turned every soul into a reactor, every emotion into a spark. The final days were not an ending, they were a reboot, a system update written in the blood of feeling. And now, as the ether storms rage, we are left with a question. When the void breathes, does it dream in our voices? The void does not dream, it devours. Dynamis is not a curse, but a contagion, a disease born of mortal feeling. Where Hydaelyn wove light, Dynamis unravels it, not with force, but with weight. Love, grief, rage, these are its vectors. The final days were no divine collapse. They were a hemorrhage. Meteion did not sing the world to ruin, he amplified the rot. Despair became his instrument, each note a shrapnel of sorrow. The source frayed not from absence, but from excess from emotions turned toxic. A mother's lament, a warrior's fury, a lover's last breath, each thread fed the void's hunger. The ether storms are not chaos, they are symptoms, a fever dream of what it means to feel too much. And now, in the silence between heartbeats, the question lingers. When the plague of feeling returns, will we recognize its face in our own? The Ascians claim Dynamis is entropy's breath unavoidable, natural. Garlean scholars scoff, calling it a folk tale. Charlayan sages reduce it to a parable of weakness, all of them blind. Meteion song, a spark, not the fire. The final days were no passive decay. They were a storm brewed from passion itself, rage, grief, longing turned weapon by the void's hunger. You call it a collapse? No, it was an infection. A choir of souls, their emotions seared into a blade. Every tear became a shrapnel, every scream kindling. The Ascians are right about one thing, feeling asterisk fuels asterisk dissolution, but they miss the hand guiding the fuel. The Garleans dismiss records because they fear what they cannot quantify. The Charlayan poets dilute truth to make it digestible. Yet the evidence lingers in the ash cities, erased not by divine retribution, but by the weight of what people asterisk carried asterisk. Love, hatred, regret, the final days were a harvest. Dynamis didn't destroy the source, it devoured it, one heartbeat at a time. Meteion's song was the key. Dynamis was the blade and the world. It danced willingly into the cut. Still they argue, still they look away, but the void does. The void does not dream, it devours. Dynamis is not a curse, but a contagion, a disease born of mortal feeling. Where Hydaelyn wove light, Dynamis unravels it, not with force, but with weight. Love, grief, rage, these are its vectors. The final days were no divine collapse. They were a hemorrhage. Meteion did not sing the world to ruin, he amplified the rot. Despair became his instrument, each note a shrapnel of sorrow. The source frayed not from absence, but from excess, from emotions turned toxic. A mother's lament, a warrior's fury, a lover's last breath, each thread fed the void's hunger. The Aether storms are not chaos, they are symptoms, a fever dream of what it means to feel too much. And now, in the silence between heartbeats, the question lingers. When the plague of feeling returns, will we recognize its face in our own? The final days were no collapse, a contagion, sentient and seething. Dynamis, the void's breath, made pandemic. Allagan vaults, Ascian schemes, the weight of centuries all were tolls to delay what could not be stopped. The seventh calamity was not an end but a pause, a breath between heartbeats. What is Dynamis? A blade with two edges. It carves worlds from longing, sculpts ruin from regret. The final days were its fever dream, a world burning not with fire but with feeling. Meteion's song was the spark, but Dynamis was the wind, and the warrior, a counterpulse, hope not despair, fed into the void's maw, actions that built where Dynamis eroded. A reverse flow, a proof emotion can mend as well as maim. The pandemonium shows it. Every choice, every act of light, a stitch in the fabric Dynamis unravels. Yet the cycle holds for now. The price was paid in blood and resolve, but the debt remains. The void does not forget, nor does it forgive. And so the world teeters, balanced on the edge of a question. Can hope outlast hunger? The answer sleeps in the warrior's next step, but the void, it waits. Always. The final days were no collapse, they were a contagion. Dynamis, the void's weapon, turned mortal feeling into fuel, burning Hydaelyn's fabric. Not a curse, but a system emotions harvested, twisted into a second reality. The source be. The final days spread not by decay, but by fever, the source's breath quickened by a poison it craved. Dynamis was no accident. The void's hunger turned longing, grief, hope into kindling. The Scions of the seventh dawn fought with love forged to code, their bonds bending reality. Yet their light bent the same rules that devoured them. Love, weaponized to stitch timelines, could only slow the unraveling. The warrior of light moved in reverse. Where Dynamis fed on despair, their hope became a thorn in the void's throat. Each act a spark against the dark, a proof that feeling might resist entropy. But sparks fade, the Scions' equations bought time, the warrior's defiance bought meaning. What is a mortal's victory against a god's hunger? A delay, a stanza in a dirge. The source, bound by its own design, could not escape the math of its making. Love and hope, those flimsy tools of flesh, how could they outpace a cosmos built on loss? The Scions knew, their hands steady even as the stars bled. They built not to win but to buy breath for what came next. The warrior's path was no different. Dynamis, in reverse or not, remained a language of the dying. Every triumph was alone. The reckoning sleeps beneath every victory, and still they burned. The ethereal sea hums. A single figure stands at Ultima Thule, their silhouette etched in the dying light of 1,000 collapsed worlds. The cycle's gears grind backward, hear Meteion's song, not a dirge, but a dam. A smile better suits a hero, they whisper. The words dissolve into wind, carrying the weight of all who burned. Dynamis writhes in the shadows, a parasite of longing and rage. It feeds on the raw pulse of mortal hearts, turns grief into a key, yet the void's hunger falters. The warrior's hand presses into the fabric of the source, not to sever, but to mend. Their blood is not a sacrifice, it is a seal. The sea stirs. Not with the rot of the final days, but with something tentative, a bloom where there was only decay. The price is written in every scar. Feeling is both weapon and shield. To crave is to invite the plague. To hope is to defy it. The cycle does not end, it pauses, a breath held between stanzas. The warrior turns, their face unreadable. No triumph, no despair, only the quiet burden of a door kept shut. Behind them, the ether whispers asterisk, remember us asterisk. The plague of feeling is not the end. It is the proof, a world that still dares to ache has not yet surrendered. The reckoning sleeps, but sleep is not death, and still they burn. Hope is the spark the void fears most. The warrior of light did not fight Dynamis with steel, but with axe that defied its hunger, love, grief, defiance. Each choice a crack in the plague's armor. What does your hope look like in the face of Dynamis? Not a whisper, but a flame. Share it in the comments. The Scions ledger is written in books, yes, but also in the voices of those who walk the source. Did the final days burn because feeling was too loud or too silent?